Does money buy happiness?
No. Money buys more money.
Startup investing, a game of skill or a game of chance?
Game of chance.
Okay, can you tell me some of his lesser known traits which made him successful?
I think I can smell money. I'm being honest.
We have something brand new for you today. Last weekend, we filmed in front of a live audience at the Quorum Gurgaon. We had over 100 people and they were all there to hear from one of the disruptors of modern India, Mr. Asish Mohapatra. Today, we celebrate actors and athletes who put India in positions of pride, as we should. But entrepreneurs who risk everything in their lives to solve our societal problems are the unsung heroes who need to be celebrated. Many of you would know Ashish as the twin unicorn founder of Ofbusiness and Oxyzo. Ofbusiness is not only one of India's few profitable unicorns, but also one of 3 startups with profit after tax of more than $100 million, all within a decade. Coming from humble origins in Orissa, Ashish truly embodies what it means to be an entrepreneur. To my mind, an entrepreneur is anyone who satisfies 2 critical conditions. Number 1, they have to have the eternal belief that the future will be better than the past. And number 2, they forge their will for upward mobility into existence with sheer perseverance. We get to know Ashish, the person, the entrepreneur, and the billionaire. Enjoy this brand new episode of First Unicorn Chats.
Ashish, how are you doing?
Doing well. Hey, thanks for making it on a Saturday. I just can't believe it that there are so many people around. So, yeah, it was a working day for me, so very convenient to just come from the office, which is about 3 kilometers away, 3 maybe 4 kilometers away. Yeah, thanks for coming in.
So when I do these conversations, right, I try to figure out that who is this person, right? And I found that the best way to know a person is to try to find out their secrets, right? So in preparation for this conversation, I focused myself, I got to the office, I opened my laptop and like any millennial, I asked ChatGPT.
Okay.
Tell me some of Asish Mohapatra's secrets.
Okay.
What do you think ChatGPT said to me?
There are no secrets.
Alright, can we see what ChatGPT actually said? ChatGPT said, I'm sorry, I cannot tell you Ashish's secrets. He's a respected entrepreneur and a public figure and I do not want to invade his privacy. So clearly, somebody is teaching ChatGPT ethics. Are you impressed by that?
Yeah, very much.
Alright, so I had to reframe my question and I reframed my question to, okay, can you tell me some of his lesser known traits which made him successful? Okay, and go back. It gave me three of your traits. I want to ask you, what do you think the first one is?
Lesser known traits. I think I have a good memory. Maybe, yeah, good memory. Second is, I think I can smell money. I'm being honest. I think I'm a good sales guy.
Okay, let's see what ChatGPT said. The first one.
But how would ChatGPT know that?
It says that you're a lifelong learner and you who constantly updates your skills, and you've studied over books of over 1,000 companies and you read a lot. So that's true, right?
I used to.
Fair enough.
Till I started up, yeah.
Okay. What's the second one you said?
I said a sales guy.
Okay. The second one, let's see. It says that you're resilient and persistent in the face of rejections and got 73 rejections from investors in 6 months. Firstly, is that true?
Well, to be very honest with you, the first time a question was posed to me, I said something like 50-ish. So the guy who was writing it down didn't want to write 50-ish. It didn't sound right. So he said 55. But the next guy who saw 55, the 55 sounds like a soap bar, right? So it became 60. Okay. And the next time I was asked, is it 60-ish? I already knew there was 60 in there, right? So I think it's more than 50. So yeah, it just kind of got extended. So this 70 plus, I think it has the number 7 in it. So
okay, that's close enough, right? All right. What's the third one? Is it sales guy?
Sales guy, I think I said a good memory.
Okay. Maybe this one, we know why you couldn't say this, because you are humble. So ChatGPT says that you're very humble, you have an egalitarian leadership style. But what actually, I definitely believe that. The part I have a harder time believing is you don't have a fixed seat in the office, you don't have a parking space, you travel economy, and you share hotel rooms.
I don't have a secretary. I've never had a secretary, even when I had the option of having one while I was working in a corporate. Don't have a driver at home. So, I drove myself.
Why is that though?
I just think that, it just keeps you very grounded. Frankly, a lot of these comforts actually push you away from building things which are more necessities. So, if you are into using a lot of those necessities, you will probably build more necessary products and services. That's how I think.
Fair enough. But what about, let's say, opportunity cost of time? So if you're spending time driving,
I just extend hours. Like, you can't figure it out. I didn't sleep last night. Really? I can really extend hours.
Now if you feel a little bit zonky, now people know why. So those are all the questions that we had from ChatGPT, right? But we'll begin with getting to know a little bit more about you. Right? You've been somebody who's always set very audacious goals for yourself.
Right.
And
like the 100 million pad, I actually set it 2 years back.
Yeah, and that when at the time that you set a goal like that, it would seem like a moonshot, right? Ki chand pe jana hai. But I think now there's enough data for the public to see that you're not just somebody who says ki chand pe jana hai, but you're actually, like the Apollo missions, you're actually able to break it down into smaller missions.
Right.
I want to know a little bit about, your background, your humble origins that actually built this mindset that I know I have to achieve big, but I also understand I need to break it down into small parts.
See, frankly, I actually spent my very early years in IIT Kharagpur. Both my parents were academics. My mother was a professor in physics, and my father was a agriculture scientist. And they were both doing their PhD, so I was in Kharagpur. And what happened is, this is like mid-80s, okay? So when I was in Kharagpur, the kind of stuff that they used to talk about while at Kharagpur used to be like really, really big. Kharagpur then had a bilateral relationship with Russia. So Russia then obviously was one of the biggest superpowers right in the middle of the Cold War. I mean, towards the fag end of the Cold War, used to really fund Kharagpur. So they used to talk about really, really big things, right? And through that, I think I got exposed to different kinds of things that, a normal kid won't. Because frankly, what used to happen is my parents used to go to study or do their research and stuff like that, and they used to leave me in either a library or with somebody, and I used to hear people talk, and as a small kid, I got enthused by it. But then suddenly what happened is after that, we went back to my small town, which is Cuttack, because my father went back to his institute, my mother went back to teaching, and suddenly Cuttack was very different from Kharagpur. I wanted that Kharagpur, and then it was a really fledgling institute, to be rebuilt around me in Cuttack, but it just wasn't possible. And then somebody told me that, you know what, you can actually rebuild it by taking baby steps. So that's how it started, thinking about saying, okay, how do I get that kind of knowledge? So I started going to a library next door. There I started picking up stuff and stuff like that. It was always baby steps, one by one by one. And once I completed the first step, I realized that, the second step is a lot more easier and stuff like that. So nothing by design, but that's where I come from. Right. But the story didn't end there. I mean, I think this is when I was like 10, 11 or so. So what happened after that is, I used to go to a very simple kind of a school because it was closer home. And then I realized that one of my friends used to actually, we used to take tiffins from home. And one of my friends actually used to get these huge tiffin boxes delivered to him over lunch. Okay, huge tiffin boxes. And there used to be 2 people carrying that and all that. And they had really tasty food, right? And I used to always go and share with him. He was generous enough. Then I went and told my mom, why don't you do this for me? She said, "Do log bade log hain." Then I got fascinated with the fact as to what is this bloody bade log thing, because I really wanted those tiffin boxes delivered. So I went and broke it down. Okay, and this I'm probably around 11ish. Okay, 11, 12, whatever. So I broke it down into saying that if you have to be a bade log, then there has to be these 7, 8 things in life. Okay. And the foremost amongst them, that was money. That you really need to have money. Second was you need to be interesting. Third is you need to have an active hobby and stuff like that, right? So at some point in time, I used to have more than 12 hobbies. Actually, at the peak, I had 15. Stamp collection, coin collection, postcard collection, sketching, all that stuff. Just to become a bade log, so that those tiffin carriers can get delivered. And it didn't stop there, by the way. So the first thing was obviously to make money, right? So during those days, and I'm talking about now 93, 94, chit funds or micro investments were actually legal, right? And they were looking for good sales guys. I realized that if you could actually sell these micro investments to retail investors like, I would say, SEC class lower than the people sitting out here, you could really make a ton of money. So that's how I got introduced to business. I became a sales guy when I was in class 8, 9, gravitating from 8 to 9. And yeah, so those are my origins, yes.
I was actually going to get into the topic of money a little bit later in this conversation, but now that you brought it up, I have a very pointed question, right? And only somebody who's been in this position of, not coming from humble means and then having quite a lot of it can actually answer this. Does money buy happiness?
No. Money buys more money. Which in turn will buy more money. It's a never-ending cycle. Once you've got into that, it's so intoxicating. Like I was telling you that 2 years back, our goal was 100 million.
Right.
Now the goal has moved to 300 million. Of that, I mean, it takes some doing to do it at that scale. But it just, it's a never-ending race. Right. Yeah. Money buys nothing else.
There's Jim Carrey, the actor. He had actually said this once, that I wish everybody could get rich and famous and have everything they ever wanted, so that they would know that that's not the answer.
Yeah.
So it's a.
But once you will never realize that. See, when you're telling me this, okay, it sounds true to me. But when I want to practice it, it just won't happen, because I'm in that, in the race. Yeah.
Just related to that, while we're on this topic of money, did you find any of your relationships changing after you became successful or after you had money?
No, I think what changed is because you are in the pursuit of money making. To be very honest, what happens is you kind of give away old relationships much faster, because you are always so forward looking. आप इतना future देख रहे हैं कि पिछला जो भी छूट गया आगे दौड़ पीछे छोड़. That it always happens like that. I think I have great friends right now, but I'm pretty sure that if I move on to a new place in another 3 years or so, all these guys would be dumped. And they would dump me as well, right? So it's vice versa. So I think that has happened, because you are always looking ahead in life.
I'll just follow up on that, right? So let's say you've been in bigger institutions where I'm sure you made friends all over, right? Whether that was at that IIT or at McKinsey.
I have a friend sitting out here. He went to B school with me. Vivek.
I think we should ask him, right, whether you've changed or not. But I'll do that at another
He wouldn't know what I'm talking about right now. I'm a very different personality than what he would know about me at campus. Because then I was just a nerd. I just wanted to ace exams. Is that right? Yeah.
That's true. Is that true? Did you get his notes before?
I used to be a good teacher. I mean, it was a 1-year MBA, ISB.
Right. Did you share notes?
I used to share notes, but more than that, see, I used to be this union. I had a bit of a union leadership background, so I actually used to take evening classes for people who could get me good stuff to eat and some gifts, and then I used to teach them.
There's always a transaction involved, right?
There's always a transaction involved. Yeah. Nothing's for free.
My last question on this topic of money, right? You are technically now a billionaire, right? Have you kind of reconciled with that tag? How does the
life doesn't change? Life doesn't change. Yeah, technically I am, but frankly it doesn't matter to you. I mean, because the treadmill just gets faster, and the incline just gets harder, and you just have to run a lot more.
Fair enough. I'm going to change tracks from talking about the outcome, which is Asish Mohapatra, to the process that was Mr. Asish Mohapatra. You've been known to conduct a lot of these little experiments, even at work, right? Yeah. And you double down on what's working, and then you shut down very quickly what doesn't work.
Yeah.
I want to hear about the experiment which led to Ofbusiness and Oxyzo.
See, very frankly, what was happening is that around, I would say, late 2014, I actually started seeing a lot of activity around the B2B world. Particularly, companies were getting started in financing, in commerce, in logistics, around the SME world, right? Hitherto a neglected world, because mostly stuff used to exist for either corporates or for retail. And then what happened is, I said, okay, this is the space that I come from, because I've traded between a few as a kid. I used to sell some physical coal and stuff like that when I made good money from selling those micro investments. So I had traded between a few as a kid. I had run one. I had run a SME in one of my corporate stints, because that was one of the roles that was given to me. I had invested in few as a venture capitalist. I said, okay, this is the world that I come from. If I look at the guys who are coming and presenting to us as prospective investees, I used to think that these guys are chumps. Like they hardly know it. They can't even talk the language, because if you're a SME guy or you're a guy on the street and you're talking in Hindi, you have to talk taka, bata, rupiah, okay, rin, nivesh. So they used to not even talk the language, and I used to think, what chums they are. This is what, they don't know the world that they come from. So I actually jumped without an idea. I said, okay, I will do something for the SMEs. I don't know what, but I had made my money, right? And I had made a, decent amount of, I would say, asset base, which could have taken care of, let's say, a couple of decades. So I just jumped, and then I figured it out. The way I figured it out is, I said, okay, let me break the problem into saying, what do I need? So in my mind, I needed 3 or 4 things. But the first thing that I needed was great people. So I started with a very good team. I can tell you, I've been a good student of all startups that have started in India. Coming out straight from the blocks, we are the best team ever, just in terms of profiles.
Yeah, I believe that. I think even Avnish from Matrix had actually come out on record and said that you guys started off with the best team that he had ever seen.
Yeah, by a distance. I mean, the first 15 guys who started, out of them, we still have 12. They are all CXOs, all worth at least 100 crores.
Oh, wow.
And the 3 who've left are, 2 of them are founders, okay? And one is a founder of a $3 billion company. Right. And the third guy actually went off to the US and he started something out there as well, which is, I think that startup is worth 300 million.
I'm lost for words. That's all at this point.
I mean, if you execute, you have to execute to a high bar, right? And I was 35. I was on the right side of 30. I knew enough people, so that helped.
How much did your journey as a VC investor actually help with what you started to build?
Actually, it seems like it helped, but frankly, it did not help at all. Because most of the VCs who knew me, okay, so while I was a VC, I was a very different kind of a VC, because I could never speak the language of a VC, right? I did not know the jargon. I used to speak in very dhanda kind of language and all that, because that was my upbringing, and hence I was a very bad VC. So most of the guys who were good VCs did not like me because I was a bad VC, and the bad VCs anyways don't matter. So when I actually went in, I actually even found it tough to get a single foot in the door. It's very tough to believe that you are a VC and you want to raise money from VCs, but you found it very tough to believe. So I actually put my other co-founders ahead of me, and that's how we got meeting. So it was damn tough.
Right. But what's the...
I also tell you why. I think I was one of the first 2 or 3 guys who actually moved on from being a VC to an entrepreneur. Couple of them are in Gurgaon, me included, but it was damn tough even for him.
But is it only you who says that you were a bad VC, or you just believe it, others don't?
No, I'll tell you why I was a bad VC. Because frankly, as a VC, what do you need to do? As a VC, the playbook is very simple. You invest in 10, you succeed in max 2. If you are great, you succeed in 3. If you are, and the others need to fail. You need to have failures and speak about it, right? But the 2 or 3 that succeed, they should be literally in double-digit returns, double-digit multiple returns, let's say 10 to 30x. Right. The problem with me was that I was very dhanda-like. So what happened is, out of the 10 that I invested, I actually invested in exact 10. Mm-hmm. 7 succeeded, meaning 7 didn't lose money. In 3 we lost money. But the 7 that succeeded gave us returns between 2 to 5x. Okay, and hence I was not a great VC. They told me I was a great business guy, I was a great operator, but not a great VC. Because that didn't fit the mold.
But those were also times of, non-techie, hardcore.
Yeah. I was absolutely non-techie.
I've pulled some receipts to demonstrate that you are not as bad an investor as you say you were. We have a recording here from a friend of Ashish's. He was a founder of Cloud9 Hospitals, and Ashish had invested in him. So he has, during my conversation with Rohit, who is the founder of Cloud9, he said a few words about Ashish. Here goes.
but it was actually Ashish of Ofbusiness, who was the Chamatkari. He's just, I don't mind calling it out in public, he's mad. He's mad, in a good way, mad. So it was Ashish who, built that relatable equation. I had the opportunity of about 4 term sheets then. Chose Matrix over everybody else because Ashish was that guy who was a complete enabler.
So you had actually convinced a founder.
This is the only company where I made more than 5x.
Fair enough.
Good words.
So, we'll come to the question of, while we're talking about venture capital and investing, right? There's a lot of folks here who probably are not investing in startups or even think of startup investing as gambling.
Right.
How many people here invest in startups? Just show me very few. How many people think that startup investing is gambling? Okay. So that I was going to preface this question, but so tell us, right? Is startup investing a game of skill or a game of chance?
Game of chance.
Completely?
Out and out. People who play it are always lured into the belief that it's a game of skill. But I can tell you, because I've invested in more than 35, it's purely a game of chance.
So why do it then? Why?
Because people love gambling, right? See, there are many vices in the world, right? So you can chew tobacco, you can drink a lot, you can gamble as well. It's a vice at the end of the day. People need to have a vice. It's a very clean vice. At the end of the day, if I'm chewing tobacco, people will tell me I'm mad because I'll have cancer one day, right? But if you are a startup guy or investing in a startup guy or an angel investor, people will say, okay.
Great advice. Fair enough. Who do you think should then invest in startup and who shouldn't invest in startups?
If you ask me, people who've run a startup or been in a startup, meaning that they've experienced it hands-on about what is a startup, typically should be the ones investing in startups. And others who do not have that experience, if they really want to do it, they should just double up and make friends who have that profile and just follow them. I think that's the only way in which I have seen a trend of people making money. I have seen ex-founders actually being good startup investors, and that could be my microcosm. And people who just kind of like all the guys who take tips from the Mumbai brokers, not all of them make money, but the Surat guys do. That's a trend, right? So similarly, if you follow that profile of a person, you'll make money.
Fair enough. I'm going to extend this question a little bit because, we're supposed to be speaking about the state of the startup ecosystem. And I'm going to say something from my very personal experience of running a fund. There's, of course, everybody's read about the funding winter and how companies are struggling to raise capital and go on.
It's not so.
It's not so?
No.
From a funding perspective?
Funding perspective, one, it is back. Second, I don't think the early startup ecosystem was that badly hit. And 3, I think the companies that are doing well, particularly from a profitability standpoint, have always had money.
That's true.
Particularly debt.
That's true. I think, but what was happening was that if you look at the normal Econ 101 of things, right, when liquidity is easily available, the valuations go up, there's more FOMO. So even if you are burning money to acquire a customer and it's there in the Excel that you will not be profitable, somehow those senses have started to prevail.
That's right.
But what's also happened from a fund manager perspective is that the LPs, limited partners who invest into our funds, have started asking fund managers this very pointed question at this point. And it's not just with us, it's with a lot of fund managers, the best ones included, which is that, you commit money to us for 8 to 10 odd years. And after that, after I take all the risk for a decade, firstly, I don't have any liquidity. You as a fund manager take 20%. I pay another 20-25% in capital gains tax. So, बचा पुचा तो कुछ भी नहीं हुआ ना, इससे अच्छा तो मैं इंडेक्स में डाल देता हूँ. Right. So my question here is that what do you think is the future for venture capital funds? Number one, and number two, there's been an exodus of capital which has gone out from these funds into more liquid assets. Do you think that trend is here to stay?
No, see, frankly, these are cycles, right? If you look at it, I have been exposed to the startup ecosystem now for close to 15 odd years. Fundamentally, the way I think about it is that there are these 3 to 4 years of boom, and then there are these winters or busts for about 1 to 2 years. We are in the middle of a bust, and hence your questions are like this. Right? Had you been in 2021, the questions were very different, because then we were in the fag end of the boom. I think the cycles change. Nothing is going to, all cycles of money. It's just that the cycles are much shorter out here. So if you take real estate, for example, real estate typically goes through 10 years of boom, and then you have 2 years of bust, right? But the reality is that the booms are not that appreciable enough as compared to what you would see in a startup boom and bust cycle. Startup boom and bust cycles are one, shorter, and two, much more higher peaks and much more deeper troughs. That's the way to think about it. So I don't think any of this is going to go away. What you are saying is very true right now as we speak, and we are probably in the middle of that cycle wherein everything is getting corrected, particularly from a startup standpoint. But there are very early signs to say that that the curve is going upward as well. Like for example, if you look at it, you look at the state of the Indian public markets, they're just going up. If you look at the the lineup of IPOs right after the general elections.
Absolutely, I think something that you touched upon was that also that India has the reason that the public markets are doing reasonably well is because there's a lot of macro tailwinds that India has going for itself today, right? If you have to give a piece of advice to anybody in this room about basically leveraging that macro opportunity to make big money, not today, not tomorrow, but in the next 5 to 10 years, what would you suggest?
With respect to public markets or in general?
Just in general.
I think with respect to public markets first, just exit. Because you would have made money in the last, a quarter, 2 quarters if you've been there. Even if you've been in mutual funds, I'm pretty sure you're seeing annualized gains of anywhere between 25 to 30% at the bare minimum, or else you are with the wrong advisor, or you are a poor investor yourself. So on that you should exit. I think if you look at the India story, right, the real force that is playing out, and in a big way, is this entire thing around China +1 or Southeast Asia +1, or for that matter some of the Middle East +1, or some of even North Africa +1. A lot of that is playing out in India. If you ask me what is one big macro wave that is going to sweep this country going ahead, is this big trend of saying that we are going to become if not the second, if not the first, but the second choice of certain country. Like for example, if you take garments, we are becoming Vietnam +1. Nobody wants to be in Vietnam because Vietnam wants to go up the value chain. Sri Lanka has gone away, so it's basically Bangladesh left. The next can be India, right? If you're playing with something in plastic, then it's China +1. If you're playing with something in metals, then it's again China +1. So in my opinion, India is at a current state where geopolitically and socio-politically, we are at that stage where we will become the manufacturing destination of choice, and hence to figure out, depending on what you know and what ecosystems you belong to, if you can bet on that one big strategy, in my opinion, that asset class is just going to fly away. Now, how do you play that? Supposing you are playing on a China +1, you could be a manufacturer yourself. You could be an investor into some kind of a manufacturing enterprise or manufacturing set of institutions. You could also build a career in a manufacturing enterprises that kind of substitutes for China. You can play it in very many ways, but in my opinion, that's the big one. That, for example, if you look at what we are betting out in our company today, the extra dollars that we are running, the 100 million that you mentioned, 60-70% of that is actually going into betting into this. And as you know, one of my skills was to smell money.
Right.
And this is like really, it's stinking.
The first word that comes to mind when I say entrepreneurship.
It's damn tough.
Power or money?
Money.
No amount of success in the professional realm can make up for failure in the personal life.
Right.
Founders need to remember that.